Jordan, I'm disappointed. Here I was thinking that this series opener between the Mariners and Reds would be all pitching, no offense. And instead, the Mariners saw their runs doubled, fell to a not very good Reds offense. What'd you see from Luis Castillo? What'd you see in this opener?
Yeah, the timing here, I know when we spoke last week, it was coming off those Astros games, but then it started to look really good, and then they had the sweep, and things are feeling good, and then going into this week, Cincinnati, they should be able to, score more runs than the Reds, and that was not happening on that opener. Yeah, Castillo's a tough one, a weird one. He certainly has not been as sharp as you might hope coming in at this point in the season. Obviously, that's a guy, he throws a lot of fastballs, and so when his command is not quite on it, even so far this year, we really have not seen him lean as much on the slider and changeup. I don't know if that's something, it's just a small sample. We'll see how that adjusts. But in that ballpark, if your command's not on, you're going to run into some trouble. But as you mentioned, the Reds offense, while it is now healthier than it was even 2 days ago with some of the additions back in the lineup, I think that is an important part of this, but it is still a disappointing result for the opener for sure.
Are you surprised with Demo's production? I mean, we always see him do a little bit of everything, but it seems like he's been leading the charge, for like 2 or 3 game stretches. What have you seen out of him? Are you surprised?
Yeah, man, it's pretty wild how long we've been kind of watching Dylan Moore do this. Quietly one of the longest tenured members of the team, and we've seen him fluctuate in all these different roles and different levels of production where it's like, okay, he's the perfect utility guy. You don't want him playing every day, but then here you go. You put him leadoff and he hits 2 home runs. He's a very fickle player. He certainly brings a lot to the table. He has these offensive outbursts. I certainly don't think he's suddenly this perfect leadoff solution, but I don't know, with the state of the offense right now, maybe they do just ride the hot hand. It's always cool to see him succeed. Jordan,
unfortunately, I will have a version of a Julio check-in every single time we talk to you, or Bump will, because he is the most important player on this team. He has gotten off to, I guess, a hotter start in terms of home run totals than he ever has in his career. But what are you seeing from Rodriguez?
Yeah. Well, I believe he did. I know Bump asked about last week, like, when's he going to get that big hit? I think it was that night he got that big hit. But again, when you're Julio, you're going to be kind of counted on basically every game to be one of those main engines for the offense, and it has still largely been inconsistent. So in that sense, I think you're still kind of looking at some of the same struggles. He's still someone that is going to chase. But I don't know, relative to recent seasons, I still feel like he has shown a relatively balanced approach and has produced in a fairly consistent manner relative to not just him in previous seasons, but to the rest of the lineup. He has come up pretty big so far a couple times this year.
How important is it for the Mariners to find that arm? Because we were talking about Castillo, and I told a story about a guy. I'm sitting at the bar, and he's yelling, "We should have traded Castillo." And I go, "Who?" And have the other Castillo and Hancock at the back of this rotation. But we understand the situation that they are in. So how important is it that an Emerson Hancock kind of starts to show up and help this team out?
I have to imagine that Logan Evans is going to factor into this conversation too at some point with the way he's been throwing the ball, just because I think that, their willingness to call up Williamson, right? I mean, that exhibits a level of aggressiveness and urgency and trust in your young players that they're going to give a shot there. And if Logan Evans, they feel like, is built up, I would not be surprised if he gets a turn through the rotation soon. But I think it's a fair question. I think we also have to keep things, in perspective, where a lot of teams would love to have Logan Gilbert, Bryce Miller, and Brian Wu. Just cut it off there. And Castillo's someone that I think you were hoping to get more consistency from this year, and I think he can still work through that. But to your point, whether it's Evans, whether it's Hancock, whether it's the other Luis Castillo, the depth isn't really there right now. And I know the bullpen showed up a little bit better over the last week than it did, when we first, when we talked a week ago. At the same time, that's that push and pull is, if you aren't going to have this flawless rotation as you did a year ago, which I think we're learning they don't, still a very good group, you're going to have either other relievers step up or starters that you weren't expecting to count on.
We were looking at the AL West yesterday, and just the run differential, and everyone is in the negative. And, you go to National League and see a bunch of green over there. And it gives me hope, because I'm thinking to myself, okay, just be a scrappy team, Mariners. Hang around for a while, get healthy, and things could happen. Should that be the approach? Do you like the state of the AL West? Does that help the Mariners in their journey to, just trying to win more ball games?
100%. I think I said that a week ago, and I think that's held true when you see the Rangers, it was funny to see the Angels had won their first 4 series and still weren't in first place because the Rangers had a slightly better record, but the Rangers have, tied with the A's for the worst run differential, and their problems on the mound have been started to be exposed, right? We haven't seen the Jacob deGrom that we've expected. And as I've said about the Angels, they simply do not deserve the benefit of the doubt until they clinch. And then the Astros, if we learned anything from last year, it'd be foolish to count them out. So yeah, this might end up being an AL Central style slog, not like last year where they kind of broke out, but very, very different teams. And the A's aren't that far back, although I think they're just so undermanned on the mound that it's going to be hard to see them be able to keep up, even though they certainly have a lot of exciting things happening on the offensive side of things. So yeah, at this stage, I think that's why Seattle is going to remain right in it. And you could say this was true even last year, right? I mean, they were still in it towards the very end because all these teams turned out to be pretty flawed.
I'm going to go back to your point about Minnesota being really inactive in the winter and you mentioning, look, I know Mariners fans are thinking they were, but Minnesota was even worse. And I find myself doing this, like, is the grass greener exercise all the time with the Mariners because they are so frustratingly in the middle. I wouldn't want to be the White Sox. I would not want to be an A's fan, right? Dealing with all the relocation and feeling betrayed, by ownership. I would not want to be a Rockies fan right now. I would not want to be a Pirates fan. And yet there's something especially frustrating about being so close and then either stubbornly or unknowingly, I have no idea, not taking that extra step. How do you view Mariners fandom right now, the experience of being a Mariners fan? Because, I mean, I'm looking at Bump's last question about a very winnable AL West, and I'm thinking, God, you have the best rotation in the AL West. You have someone who could be MVP if he's able to turn it on a little more consistently. Like, being that close almost adds a different kind of frustration.
Yeah, it goes both ways, right? And I think that's kind of the discussion around them being in the middle and being so passive or unwilling to kind of push and make the aggressive move, at least from a spending side of things in free agency, is that opportunity appears to be there. And so, on the one hand, as we know, part of the problem with this discourse is the notion that, well, maybe you don't have to spend all that money and you can still win the division. And that's not a fun way to think. But obviously in this division, it has maybe fostered that. We've seen it clearly in the Central, in both Central divisions, that you've seen teams in those divisions that have been very easy to kind of sit back and be like, why would we spend that much more than our opponents? At the same time, I think it's an interesting contrast when you look in the West. And in the West and the East, specifically in the NL West and the AL East, you look at teams like Toronto, who have been very disappointing, and they keep push, spend. You look in the NL West, you see that the Giants and D-backs are recognizing, hey, wait a minute, if we have any chance of keeping up with San Diego and LA, we're going to have to spend as well. So it's kind of mirroring the rest of the division's activity. And even Texas was a little bit more aggressive. The Angels have kind of gone up and down, but Houston, they've been doing more cost cutting than necessarily pushing financially. So unfortunately, I think that's kind of where they find themselves. And there's a lot of teams in baseball that end up just mirroring what the teams in their division are willing to do. And I think that's part of what we've seen with Seattle.
He is Yahoo Sports Jordan Shusterman. Jordan, if fans want to find more from you this week heading into next Wednesday, where can they find it?
Baseball Barbacast. Our episode today talked about Aaron Judge being named the captain of Team USA. We picked our dream teams for the 2026 WBC Team USA. Jake and I compared notes there. So give a listen to that. And spoiler alert, Cal Raleigh is the catcher.
I was going to ask.
We like it, Jordan.
Come on, of course.
Again, Baseball Barbacast. Rate, review, subscribe, find it wherever you get your podcast. He is Jordan Shusterman. Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you, guys.